Hi everyone, welcome to our writing program. Before we get started on today's lesson, I'm just going to go through what it's going to look like for the whole week. So in lesson 1 on Monday, which is today, we're going to be looking at weekend recount writing. Then in lesson 2 on Tuesday, we're going to be doing some informative writing work. Then in lesson 3 on Wednesday, we're going to be looking at informative writing again. In lesson 4 on Thursday, we're going to be creating a simple text, which is just our sentence a day. And then in lesson 5 on Friday, we're going to be doing the same thing, our sentence a day. Now today is Monday, so it's lesson 1, and we're going to be looking at weekend recount writing. And this is something that we've had a little bit of practice with already. Let's have a look at our learning intention and success criteria. So our learning intention says we are learning to write a recount. A recount tells or informs the reader about a personal experience. So a personal experience is something that has happened to you in real life. Let's look at our success criteria. I can write one or more ideas about my weekend. I can use some words like first, then, after, next, and finally. I can write some details like when, who, where, and what. So first, let's have a look at our waggle, which is what a good one looks like. So here is an example of a recount, and this is a recount of my weekend. Now, in order to write my recount, I need to remember my 4 W's that I mentioned in my success criteria just a moment ago. And our 4 W's you can see are on the right-hand side of the screen on the poster. So the first one we'll think about is who. Who was there? The next one is what. What did we do? The next one is when. When did it happen? And the last one is where. Where did it happen? So let's have a read now of my weekend recount. On the weekend, my family and I had fun at the park. So let's go through the 4 W's and check where they were. And I'm going to pick up a pen colour that matches the colour of each of the 4 W's on my recount posters over here. So for who, it's the colour red. So I'm going to pick a red pen and I'm going to underline my who in red. Okay, so my first sentence says, on the weekend, my family and I had fun at the park. Well, who was there? My family and I. Now the next W is what, and it's in orange. So I'm going to pick an orange one and we're going to look at what we did. I had fun at the park. I think that's what I did. So I'm going to underline that. I had fun at the park. The next W is when. When did it happen? Well, I can see that at the beginning of the sentence, on the weekend. Now our last W is where. Where did it happen? It happened at the park, right at the end of my sentence there. So now let's have a look at the order of the rest of my recount. So now I start talking about what I did in sequence, in the order that it happened. So the first one says, first, we went to the park. And the next one says, next, we rode our bikes. And the last one says, finally, we went back home and had lunch. And then you can see underneath my writing here, I've got some pictures showing what I have written about in my recount. So for the first picture, I can see my family and I going to the park. In the next picture, I can see us riding our bikes. And in the last picture, I can see us back at home having our lunch. So based on what I just told you about my weekend, I'm going to be showing you how to write a recount of my wonderful weekend. So you can see up here it says this is a recount, my teacher's weekend. And this is the sheet that I'm going to be using to show you my recount. You can see that there are 3 boxes across the top. That's for my 3 pictures of the 3 things that I did. And underneath each box are some lines. And those are the lines for me to write my information about the 3 things that I did. So as you can see, in the first box, I have drawn a picture of my family and I going to the park. And underneath the first box, I've written my first sentence. And you can see that it starts with the word first because that's the first thing that I did. Here is the word first. And my sentence says, first, we went to the park. Now, I have drawn a picture of my family and I doing the next thing, which was riding our bikes. And then underneath you can see another sentence, and that sentence says, next we rode our bikes. So I've used the word next to show the next thing that has happened. And finally, I've got a picture in the third box of my family and I back at home eating our lunch. And to begin that sentence, I have used the word finally because this is the last thing that we did. Now that I've shown you an example of what a good recount looks like, it's time for you to have a go. So this activity is called Think, Pair, Share. And normally at school, you might turn to a partner and talk to them about your recount. But today you're at home, so you're going to talk to a family member or someone in your house to tell them about your recount. And then you get to write it. So I've just got a list here along the side of very important words that you need to remember to use in your recount. You will need 3 very important words to help you start your 3 sentences. So for the first one, you might use the word first. For the next sentence, you might say next or then. And then for the last one, you might start your sentence with after that or finally. You can always rewind your video, go back to this slide to check out these words and pick one that you would like to use for each sentence. Now here I'm just showing you an example again of the My Wonderful Weekend sheet that you can use to write your recount. Now you are not expected to print any of this or take it off the computer or write on your computer in any way. You can just draw up your own example, which I'll show you on the next slide. So this is just an example of what I did. I drew 3 boxes in a row and I used a ruler to rule up some lines underneath my boxes, and that's for me to write my sentences. But if you don't have a ruler at home, you can just try your best to do 3 boxes and lines underneath your boxes, or just write your sentences straight onto your paper. Here I'm just showing you an example of some sentence starters you can use to start each sentence in your weekend recount. So you can see under the first box, I've started my sentence with first, and you can use that sentence starter as well, and then write a short sentence about the first thing you did on your weekend. And you can see under the second box, I've started my sentence with the word next, and then you can write about the next thing that you did. And under the last box, I've written the word finally. And after that, you can write about the last thing you did. Now, Miss Coote and I would love to see your recounts about your wonderful weekends. So if you can, please make sure you take a photo of your finished work and upload it into the Google Doc on your week 4 completed work document on our Google Classroom. We can't wait to read them. Before we finish our lesson today, let's have a quick reflection about what we did. Let's look at our learning intention first. We are learning to write a recount. A recount tells the reader about a personal experience. So hopefully in your own recount, you wrote about a personal experience, which was something that really happened to you in real life on the weekend. Let's look at our success criteria. I can write one or more ideas about my weekend. So hopefully you wrote about 3 things in order that happened on your weekend. I can use some words like first, then, after, next, and finally. So hopefully you used some of those words to start your sentences to show us the order that things happened in on your weekend. And lastly, I can write some details like when, who, where, and what. So maybe in your recount, you included some information about when you did it, who was there, where you did it, and what you did. Well done, everybody. Thank you for taking part in our writing lesson today. See you tomorrow.